Yeah, we're like, hi guys.
The program was called. Before we start, hit that subscribe to support Battleground Archive, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Before I tell you, I want you to understand something. I worked for the Central Intelligence Agency for 32 years, most of that time in positions that never officially existed. I interviewed defectors who described horrors beyond imagination. I helped governments conceal secrets they decided the world wasn't ready for, but nothing prepared me for what I discovered in the winter of 1963. That winter, I was assigned to investigate a Nazi research program that had been erased from all official records. The program was called Die Glocke. My name is Daniel Hartman. This is the story of how I discovered that the Nazis didn't just lose the war.
Happy New
They opened
Year,
a door that
baby!
should have remained closed forever. It started with a phone call on December 3rd, 1963. I was sitting in my office at Langley, Virginia, reviewing intelligence reports from East Berlin, when my secure line rang. The voice on the other end belonged to Deputy Director Morrison, a man I'd spoken to exactly twice in my 12 years with the agency. Hartman, he said, his voice clipped and cold. Conference room 7, 10 minutes. Tell no one. Conference room 7 was in the basement of the building, in a section that most employees didn't even know existed. When I arrived, Morrison was waiting with two men in civilian clothes who radiated that particular kind of authority that comes from agencies even more secretive than ours. Sit down, Hartman, Morrison said, sliding a manila folder across the table. What I'm about to tell you is classified beyond anything you've encountered before. This conversation never happened. This meeting never took place. And if you choose to accept this assignment, you will never speak of it to anyone, including your wife, your children, and your priest. Are we clear? I nodded. After 12 years, I knew better than to ask unnecessary questions. Good. Open the phone.
Bobo, when she's late, she's usually at a friend's house comforting her because a friend's husband died not long ago.
Folder. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, grainy, clearly taken in poor lighting conditions. It showed what appeared to be a large bell-shaped object, maybe 3 meters tall, suspended by heavy chains in some kind of underground facility. The object had a smooth metallic surface with what looked like cables or conduits running along its exterior. Around its base, I could make out strange symbols that weren't quite German, weren't quite anything I recognized. This photograph was taken in January 1945, Morrison said, in a facility located somewhere in the Owl Mountains near the border between Germany and Poland. The object you're looking at was called Die Glocke, the bell. It was the crown jewel of a research program so secret that even most of Hitler's inner circle didn't know it existed. What kind of research? I asked. Morrison exchanged glances with the two unnamed men before continuing. That's what we need you to find out. For 18 years, we've known almost nothing about this program. The Nazis destroyed every document, killed every witness, demolished every facility connected to it. When our forces captured German scientists after the war, none of them would talk about Die Glocke. Not under interrogation, not under sodium pentothal, not even when we offered them immunity and comfortable lives in America. Whatever they knew about that project, they were more afraid of revealing it than they were of us. So what changed? Morrison slid another item across the table. A leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age, its cover stained with what might have been water damage or might have been something else. 3 weeks ago, a construction crew in Poland was excavating near the Owl Mountains when they broke through into an underground chamber that had been sealed since the war. Inside, they found this journal and several crates of documents that had somehow escaped destruction. The Polish government contacted us immediately. They want nothing to do with whatever was in that facility. I picked up the journal carefully. The handwriting inside
What time is it there, Bobo?
was small, precise, feminine. The text was in German, which I read fluently. The journal belonged to a woman named Amelia Weiss, Morrison continued. According to our preliminary research, she was a research assistant assigned to the Die Glock project in 1944. She's the only person we've ever identified who might have survived whatever happened in that facility. Her journal describes events that, well, you'll need to read it yourself. Where is she now? Unknown. After the war, Amelia Weiss disappeared completely. No immigration records, no death certificate, nothing. She either died in the chaos of 1945, or she's been hiding for 18 years. Your assignment is to find out what really happened in that facility. Look.
Yeah, Bobo, we really love Busby. We really are so glad we got him.
Locate any surviving witnesses and determine whether Die Glock poses any ongoing threat to national security. I almost laughed at that last part. A Nazi experiment from 1945 posing an ongoing threat? But something in Morrison's expression stopped me. He wasn't joking. He was afraid. One more thing, he said as I stood to leave. The documents recovered from that chamber include references to American involvement in the project after the war, Operation Paperclip personnel, CIA funding, continued research at facilities on American soil. If that information becomes public, it could destroy this agency and everyone associated with it. Find out the truth, Hartman. But be prepared for the possibility that the truth is worse than anything you've imagined.
Yep.
I wanted to ask more questions. I wanted to understand why this particular project, out of all the Nazi research programs we had absorbed after the war, warranted such extreme secrecy. But Morrison's expression made it clear that the briefing was over. I was being sent into the darkness with a flashlight and a journal, expected to illuminate mysteries that had remained hidden for almost 2 decades. As I left the conference room, one of the unnamed men stopped me with a hand on my shoulder. He leaned close, his breath smelling of coffee and cigarettes. Hartman, he said quietly, so Morrison couldn't hear. I've read that journal. All of it. Whatever you think you know about physics, about time, about the nature of reality, forget it. None of it applies to what you're about to encounter. And if you start to feel like you're losing your grip on what's real and what isn't, trust that feeling. Because in this case, reality itself might be the lie. Then he walked away, leaving me standing in the corridor with a growing sense that I had just accepted an assignment that would change everything I thought I knew about the world. I spent the flight to Poland reading Amelia Weiss's journal from cover to cover.
Yeah, Bobo, they become family. Your pets become your family.
What I found in those pages kept me awake for the next 3 nights, and I've never slept well since. The journal began in September 1944, when Amelia was assigned to a facility she called Der Riese, the Giant. She was 28 years old, a physicist who had studied under some of Germany's greatest scientists before the war. September 15th, 1944. I arrived at the facility today after a journey I am forbidden to describe. The complex is built into the mountains themselves, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that seems to extend endlessly into the earth. They have assigned me to work under Dr. Victor Brandt, whose reputation precedes him. Before the war, he was considered one of the finest theoretical physicists in Europe. Now he leads a team of 60 scientists working on something called Project Kronos. When I asked what Kronos meant, Dr. Brandt smiled in a way that made me uncomfortable. Time, he said. We are learning to control time itself. I assumed he was speaking metaphorically. I was wrong. The journal entries that followed described Amelia's growing involvement in the project and her dawning horror at what she was helping to create. Die Glocke, she learned, was not simply a weapon or a power source. It It was something far more dangerous. October 3rd, 1944. Today, I finally saw D Glock for the first time. It sits in the deepest chamber of the facility, suspended from the ceiling by chains thick enough to anchor a battleship. The bell is approximately 3 meters tall, made from a metal alloy that Dr. Brandt claims does not exist in nature. Its surface is covered in symbols that he says predate human civilization, copied from artifacts recovered from archaeological sites across Europe and the Middle East. When I asked where the symbols came from, he told me they were found in places that officially do not exist, places where reality operates according to different rules. The bell is powered by a substance called Zerum 525, a violet-colored liquid that glows with its own inner light. No one will tell me what Zerum 525 is made from, but I've heard rumors about heavy metals, about radioactive isotopes, about organic compounds extracted from sources I don't want to think about. When Die Glock is activated, it produces a field that Dr. Brandt calls the vortex. Within this field, time does not flow as it should. Objects age decades in seconds. Living tissue experiences temporal displacement. And sometimes, according to whispered stories I've overheard, things appear in the vortex that were not there before. Things from other times, other places, other realities entirely. I am beginning to understand why so many scientists who worked here before me are no longer alive. As I read further, the journal entries became increasingly disturbing. Emilia described experiments that killed dozens of test subjects, prisoners from concentration camps who were exposed to D Glock's field and experienced what she called temporal dissolution. Their bodies aged and de-aged simultaneously, their cells torn apart by forces that human biology was never meant to experience. But the deaths weren't the worst part. November 12th, 1944. Something has changed in the facility. The mood has shifted from excitement to fear. Last week's experiment produced results that no one can explain. We activated D Glock at higher power levels than ever before. The vortex expanded beyond its normal boundaries, filling the entire test chamber with violet light. And then something happened that I still cannot fully process. Time stopped. Not metaphorically, not subjectively, time actually stopped. For approximately 37 seconds, nothing in the facility moved. Hearts did not beat. Lungs did not breathe. Electrical systems froze mid-cycle. The only thing that continued to function was Die Glock itself, humming at a frequency that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. But here's what terrifies me. During those 37 seconds, several members of the observation team reported seeing things. Figures moving through the frozen moment. Shapes that were not human, that seemed to be examining us like specimens in a laboratory. One technician claims he saw a face pressed against the observation window. A face with too many eyes, watching with what he described as ancient curiosity. Dr. Brandt is ecstatic. He believes we are on the verge of a breakthrough that will change the course of human history. But I've seen the look in the eyes of the soldiers who guard this facility. They're not excited. They're terrified. We have opened a door, and I'm no longer certain we can close it. The journal continued with increasingly disturbing observations over the following weeks. November 28th, 1944.
Ah, yeah, that's the feeling. Progress.
The LDV work van range. All kinds of work vans for all kinds of work.
5 more test subjects died today. Prisoners from the camps brought here like cattle to slaughter. SS Obersturmfuhrer Richter watches the experiments with cold satisfaction, taking notes in a leather-bound book he never lets anyone else see. He doesn't care about the science, only about results that can be reported to Berlin. Every death is just a data point to him. But something strange happened during today's experiment. One of the subjects, a Polish man, perhaps 40 years old, didn't die immediately when exposed to the field. Instead, he began speaking in a language none of us recognized. Not Polish, not German, not any language in our records. The words seemed to bypass normal hearing, resonating directly in our minds. Dr. Brandt was fascinated. He ordered the experiment continued despite the obvious danger. The subject spoke for nearly 3 minutes before his body finally gave out. But in those 3 minutes, he said things that Dr. Brandt transcribed with trembling hands. He spoke of beings that exist in the spaces between seconds, of intelligences that perceive our entire universe as we might perceive a single page in an infinite book, of a hunger that has waited since before the stars were born. When I asked Victor what it meant, he looked at me with eyes that held something I had never seen before. Not madness exactly, something worse. Certainty. It means we're on the right track, he said. It means they know we're coming. December 15th, 1944. The war goes badly for Germany.
Hey, Phil,
Everyone
good to
knows
see you,
it,
bro.
though no one dares say it aloud. The Allied forces advanced from the west, the Soviets from the east. Berlin speaks of miracle weapons that will turn the tide. But we who work in this facility know the truth. There is only one miracle weapon, and it is not meant to win wars. Victor has become obsessed with completing the project before the facility falls to the enemy. He works 20 hours a day, barely eating, barely sleeping. When I try to speak to him about anything other than D Glock, he looks through me as if I'm not there. I've begun to notice changes in him, physical changes. His hair, which was dark brown when I met him, is now streaked with gray. His skin has taken on a translucent quality, as if I can almost see the bones beneath. And his eyes. His eyes have developed a faint luminescence that's visible in the dark. When I asked if he was feeling well, he laughed. I've never felt better, he said. The field is changing me, Amelia, preparing me for what comes next. Soon I won't need this body at all. Soon I'll be free of every limitation that makes us human. I should be frightened. I am frightened. But I'm also beginning to understand that what happens here is beyond my control, beyond anyone's control. Events have been set in motion that will proceed to their conclusion regardless of what any of us wants. God help us all. I arrived in Poland on December 8th, 1963, traveling under a false identity with credentials that identified me as an academic researcher studying wartime industrial facilities. My contact was a local intelligence asset named Kowalski, who had been cultivating sources in the region for years. The construction site is about 30 kilometers from here, Kowalski told me as we drove through snow-covered countryside that looked like it hadn't changed since the war. The workers who found the chamber have been persuaded to forget what they saw, but the chamber itself is still accessible. The Polish government has sealed it, but I can get you inside. What about witnesses? Anyone who might have worked at the facility during the war? Kowalski was silent for a moment. There is one, an old woman who lives in a village near the mountains. The locals say she appeared after the war, speaking German, refusing to talk about her past. She's lived there for 18 years, alone, never leaving, never aging. Never aging. I know how it sounds, but the villagers swear it's true. They say she looked 60 years old when she arrived in 1945. She still looks 60 years old today. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Polish winter. What's her name? She calls herself Maria Novak, but when she first arrived, before she learned to hide her identity, some of the villagers heard her muttering in her sleep, calling out for someone named Victor, crying about something called Die Glocke. Amelia Weiss. It had to be. Somehow, against all odds, she had survived. But before I could interview her, I needed to see the facility for myself. I needed to understand what had happened there in the final day.
Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome back. With this D Glocker, didn't it end up somewhere in America around the 60s? Like a time travel to the 60s? I'm pretty sure that's true.
Is of the war. The entrance to the underground complex was hidden in a ravine, concealed behind what had once been a concrete bunker, but was now little more than a pile of rubble. Kowalski led me through a narrow passage that had been recently excavated, our flashlights cutting through darkness that felt somehow thicker than normal darkness, more resistant to light. The main chamber is about 200 meters ahead, Kowalski said, his voice echoing strangely in the confined space. That's where they found the journal and the documents. But I should warn you, there's something wrong with this place. The workers who excavated it reported feeling sick, disoriented. Some of them had nightmares for weeks afterward. One of them swears he saw his dead mother walking through the tunnels. Did you see anything? Kowalski didn't answer, but I noticed his hand was shaking as he held his flashlight. The main chamber was exactly as Amelia had described it in her journal. A vast underground space carved from solid rock, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above our heads. The chains that had once held Die Glocke were still there, hanging from massive hooks embedded in the stone, but the bell itself was gone. The Soviets took it, Kowalski said, following my gaze. In 1945, they stripped this facility of everything valuable. Die Glocke, the documents, the surviving scientists. All of it went east. The Americans got some of it through defectors and intelligence operations over the years, but the bell itself, no one knows where it ended up. I walked around the chamber, examining the walls with my flashlight. They were covered in symbols, the same symbols I had seen in the photograph, the same symbols Amelia had described in her journal. But there was something else too. Scorch marks. Patterns of damage that radiated outward from the center of the chamber, as if something had exploded here with tremendous force. And on the floor, barely visible under decades of dust and debris, I saw stains. Dark stains that might have been oil or rust or something else entirely. Stains that formed patterns too regular to be accidental. I knelt down, brushing away the dust with my gloved hand.
Bob.
The patterns became clearer. Concentric circles, radiating outward from the center of the chamber, where Die Glocke had once hung. And within those circles, shapes that might have been symbols, or might have been something else, impressions left in the stone itself, as if the floor had been momentarily softened by intense heat, or some other force, and then hardened again, preserving whatever had pressed against it. What do you make of this? I asked Kowalski, pointing to one of the shapes. He knelt beside me, studying the impression with his flashlight. His face went pale. It looks like a handprint, he said slowly, but the proportions are wrong. The fingers are too long, and there are too many of them. He was right. The impression showed something with at least 7 digits, each one nearly twice the length of a human finger, splayed out as if reaching for something or pressing down to push itself upward. There are more over here, I said, moving my light across the floor. Dozens of them, all oriented toward the center of the chamber. We spent the next hour documenting what we found. Handprints, if they could be called that, covering almost every square meter of the floor. Some were pressed into the stone. Others seemed to have been burned into the surface, leaving behind a residue that my equipment couldn't identify. And among the handprints, scattered like leaves after a storm, we found other artifacts. A woman's shoe, perfectly preserved. A pair of spectacles with one lens cracked. A pocket watch that had stopped at exactly 11:47 p.m., but the most disturbing discovery was in a small alcove at the edge of the chamber. Hidden behind a collapsed section of wall, we found what appeared to be a shrine. Candles long since burned down to stubs. Photographs of people I didn't recognize, arranged in a circle, and in the center, carved into the stone with what must have been painstaking effort, a single word in German. Vergib, forgive. Someone had survived that final night. Someone had returned to this chamber after the horror had ended and created this memorial for those who had been taken. And then they had disappeared into the chaos of a collapsing Reich, carrying their secrets with them. I thought of Amelia Weiss, the woman Kowalski had told me about, the woman who had lived in the nearby village for 18 years, never aging, never speaking about her past. Kowalski, I said, my voice barely above a whisper in the oppressive silence of the chamber. I need to meet this Maria Novak tonight, before anyone else learns I'm here. Kowalski, I said, my voice sounding strange in the heavy air. What do you know about what happened here at the end of the war? Only rumors. Stories passed down by people who lived in the area. They say that in the last week of January 1945, something went wrong in this facility. There were lights in the sky above the mountains, strange colors that no one had ever seen before, sounds that weren't quite sounds, more like vibrations that you felt in your bones rather than heard with your ears.
Interesting.
And then, on the night of January 28th, there was an event that no one can properly describe. What kind of event?
Tech moves fast, but I move faster. Pluralsight has the in-demand skills I needed to stand out. I don't fear change. I embrace it.
They would have loved you. They love guns.
The villagers say that time itself went wrong. For several hours, the sun rose and set multiple times. People experienced moments from their past and future simultaneously. Some people disappeared entirely and were never seen again. Others appeared out of nowhere. Strangers who claimed to be from different years, different places, different versions of reality. And the facility?
I've never heard this before at all. Wow.
Sealed. The Nazis who survived whatever happened here sealed every entrance, killed anyone who knew too much, and fled. By the time the Soviets arrived a few months later, there was nothing left but empty tunnels and these symbols on the walls. I stared at those symbols, feeling something shift in my understanding of the world. I had spent my career dealing with secrets, political secrets, military secrets, the kinds of secrets that governments killed to protect. But this was different. This was a secret that challenged the very foundations of reality itself. And according to Amelia's journal, the experiment that had created this disaster wasn't an accident. It was exactly what Dr. Victor Brandt had intended. The village where Maria Novak lived was a collection of wooden houses clustered around a small church, the kind of place that seemed to exist outside of time. As Kowalski and I approached the house at the edge of the settlement, I noticed that the other villagers were watching us from their windows, their faces pale and anxious. They're afraid of her, Kowalski murmured, not because she's done anything to them, but because of what she represents. They've lived with the memory of that night in 1945 for almost 20 years. She's a living reminder that what happened was real. The house itself was small, neat, surrounded by a garden that was somehow still green despite the winter cold. When I knocked on the door, it opened almost immediately, as if she had been expecting us. Amelia Weiss, for it was unmistakably her, matching the photograph in the file Morrison had given me, stood in the doorway, studying me with eyes that held far too much knowledge for a human being to carry. Kowalski had been right. She looked 60 years old, but there was something about her that suggested she had been 60 for a very long time, and might remain 60 for a very long time to come. "You're American," she said in accented but perfect English. "CIA, I assume. I wondered when you would find me." "My name is Daniel Hartman. I'm investigating." "I know what you're investigating. I've been waiting 18 years for someone to come asking questions about Die Glocke. I'm almost relieved it's finally happening. The weight of keeping this secret alone has been considerable." She stepped aside, gesturing for us to enter. The interior of the house was spare, almost monastic, with few decorations except for a single photograph on the mantel. I recognized the man in the picture from the files, Dr. Victor Brandt, younger than I had imagined, with intense eyes and a slight smile that might have been confidence or madness. "You loved him," I said. "I did. And I hated him. And I feared him. Victor was all of those things and more. He was a genius who believed he could unlock the secrets of the universe. And in a way, he succeeded. But the universe has secrets that are not meant to be known. Victor learned that too late. What happened on the night of January 28th, 1945? Amelia sat down heavily in a chair by the window, staring out at the snow-covered mountains in the distance. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. We achieved what Victor had always dreamed of. We broke through the barrier that separates our reality from whatever lies beyond. And we discovered that we are not alone in the cosmos, that there are intelligences out there, watching, waiting, existing in dimensions that human minds cannot fully comprehend. What kind of intelligences? I don't have words for what we saw. Human language wasn't designed to describe them, but imagine beings that exist outside of time as we understand it. Beings that perceive all of history, past, present, future, as a single moment. Beings that have been aware of humanity since before we climbed down from the trees, watching our development with something between curiosity and hunger. Hunger. They feed on consciousness, on awareness, on the spark that makes sentient beings different from rocks and stars. Every time D Glocka was activated, it sent a signal into their dimension, like a beacon, like a dinner bell. And on that final night, when Victor pushed the experiment further than ever before, we didn't just send a signal. We opened a door. Amelia turned to face me, and I saw tears streaming down her cheeks. 63 people were working in the facility that night. Scientists, technicians, soldiers, prisoners. When D Glock reached full power, when the vortex expanded to fill the entire complex, they all vanished. Not died. Vanished, pulled through the door into whatever dimension the bell had connected us to. But you survived. If you can call this survival. She laughed bitterly. I was in an observation booth when it happened, protected by several meters of lead shielding. The field touched me, but it didn't take me completely. Instead, it changed me. My body no longer ages normally. I experience time differently than other people. Sometimes I remember events that haven't happened yet. Sometimes I forget things that happened yesterday. I exist partially in our dimension and partially in theirs, and I will continue to exist this way until whatever is left of my consciousness finally dissolves. What about Brant? What happened to him? Amelia was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. Victor was standing at the base of D Glocka when the breakthrough occurred. He was the first one taken. But before he disappeared completely, I saw something that I've never been able to forget. He was smiling, not a smile of fear or madness, a smile of triumph. He knew exactly what was happening. He had planned for it. The entire project from the very beginning was designed to reach this moment. Victor didn't want to control time or create weapons for the Reich. He wanted to make contact with whatever exists beyond our reality, and he succeeded. Why would anyone want that? Because Victor believed that these beings could grant immortality, that by merging with their dimension, consciousness could exist forever, free from the limitation.
It does already. We don't need their help.
As a physical form. He saw D Glock not as a weapon, but as a gateway to eternal life. And the 63 people who disappeared with him.
Look at that typo, BB. A tight Bobo.
Sacrifices, offerings, the price of admission to a realm that humans were never meant to enter. I sat in silence for a long moment, processing what I had just heard. The implications were staggering. If Amelia was telling the truth, and every instinct I had developed over 12 years of intelligence work told me she was, then the Nazi scientists hadn't just been pursuing military advantage. They had been engaged in something far more fundamental, something that challenged the very foundations of materialist science. Tell me about Richter, I said finally, the SS officer who oversaw the project. What happened to him? Amelia's expression darkened. Karl Richter was a true believer, not in the Nazi ideology. He was too intelligent for that. But in the project itself, in what Victor was trying to achieve. While most of the SS saw Die Glock as a potential weapon, Richter understood its true purpose. He wanted to be there when the door opened. He wanted to be among the first to pass through. Did he get his wish? In a manner of speaking. On the night of the final experiment, Richter was in the main chamber with Victor and the others. He had insisted on witnessing the breakthrough personally. When Die Glocke reached full power, when the vortex expanded to fill the entire space, he was standing less than 5 meters from the bell itself. So he was taken with the others? Amelia shook her head slowly. That's what I believed for many years. But last year, something happened that made me question everything I thought I knew about that night. She rose from her chair and walked to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. From inside, she withdrew a yellowed newspaper clipping, its edges crumbling with age. This is from a Brazilian newspaper, she said, handing it to me. Published in 1961. The article describes a strange incident in a small town in the Amazon basin. A man appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the town square, wearing a German military uniform, speaking a language that no one could understand. He was taken to...
Okay, what they're doing here, they're talking about a time machine, Bobo. The Nazis invented a time machine called the Glocker. We all know about it.
To a local hospital, where he died 3 days later without ever regaining coherent speech. I looked at the grainy photograph accompanying the article. The man in the picture was elderly, his face gaunt and weathered, but there was something about his eyes, a quality that I had seen before in photographs from the Die Glocke files. You think this was Richter? I'm certain of it. The uniform he was wearing was SS. The insignia matched Richter's rank, Ixley, and according to the hospital records that I was able to obtain through unconventional channels, the man had physical anomalies that couldn't be explained by normal medicine. His internal organs were arranged incorrectly. His bones showed evidence of having been broken and healed hundreds of times.
What?
And his brain, the doctors who examined it after his death said they had never seen anything like it. The neural pathways had been completely restructured, as if his mind had been taken apart and reassembled according to a different pattern. How is that possible? If he was taken in 1945, how could he appear in Brazil in 1961? Amelia looked at me with those ancient, knowing eyes. That's the question, isn't it? My theory is that Richter didn't travel through space. He traveled through time. 16 years passed for us, but for him, who knows how long it was. The beings that exist in that other dimension don't experience time the way we do. A day for them might be centuries for us, or vice versa. Are you saying that the others who were taken might still be
Hey,
alive?
boss, good to see you,
That they
mate.
might return? I'm saying that the concepts of alive and dead may not apply in the way we normally understand them. Victor believed that consciousness is not dependent on physical form, that it can be transferred, transformed, preserved in ways that our science cannot yet comprehend. If he was right, then the 63 people who vanished that night didn't cease to exist. They became something else.
Food.
Something that exists outside our normal framework of reality. She paused, staring out the window at the mountains in the distance. And if they can return, if Richter could return after 16 years, then Victor might return as well. Might already be trying to return. Every night, when I close my eyes, I wonder if tonight will be the night I see him again, standing in my doorway, smiling that smile, telling me that he's finally ready to show me what lies on the other side. What Amelia told me next confirmed my worst fears about the scope of this conspiracy. The experiment didn't end in 1945, she said. After the war, both the Americans and the Soviets recovered fragments of the project. Scientists, documents, samples of Serum 525. They continued the research in secret. each side racing to recreate what Victor had achieved. How do you know this? Because they came to me, both sides, the Soviets first, in 1946. They wanted me to help them rebuild Die Glock. I refused, so they imprisoned me for 3 years before I managed to escape to the West. Then the Americans found me. CIA officers, just like you. They offered me money, protection, a new identity if I would share what I knew about the project. Did you help them? I told them enough to convince them I was cooperating, but I held back the most important information: the frequencies, the precise configuration of the field generators, the composition of Zerum 525. Without those details, they could build copies of Die Glock, but they couldn't make them work properly. They couldn't open the door, but they kept trying.
Bad news. Your business is only using 20% of its data. The other 80%? It's all around you. Untapped opportunity everywhere. Sure, you could search for it all over the place, or you could find it in one place. HubSpot, where data that's buried in emails, call logs, and meeting notes become insights that help you grow your business. All the data makes all the difference. Learn more at HubSpot.com.
For years, I know of at least 3 facilities where experiments continued. One in Nevada, one in Siberia, one in Argentina, where former Nazi scientists were given sanctuary. Each time they activated their devices, they got partial results, strange phenomena, temporal anomalies, occasionally disappearances that were explained away as accidents or defections. She reached into her chest again and withdrew a folder containing photographs and documents. I've collected evidence over the years, newspaper clippings about strange events near known research facilities, death certificates for scientists who worked on related projects, satellite photographs showing unusual construction in remote areas. I examined the documents. They painted a disturbing picture of worldwide research into phenomena that official science insisted were impossible. References to projects with code names like Looking Glass and Kronos 2 and Gateway. Mentions of accidents that killed dozens of researchers. Reports of test subjects who experienced impossible events. Seeing future newspapers, remembering conversations that hadn't happened yet, aging decades in a matter of hours. The Americans called their main project Montauk, Amelia continued, after the location on Long Island where they conducted their most advanced experiments. I've heard rumors about what happened there. Stories about portals opening in the middle of the night, about creatures emerging from those portals, about an incident in 1983 that was so catastrophic it forced them to shut down the entire program.
That'd be the Montauk Monster, I'm guessing.
What kind of incident? I don't know the details. The information is compartmentalized, even within the intelligence community, but I've heard that they succeeded in opening a stable connection, not just for seconds, but for hours. And something came through, something that killed everyone in the facility before the connection could be severed. Did any of them succeed? Amelia hesitated. There were rumors. In the late 1950s, I heard stories about a breakthrough at the Soviet facility, a successful activation that opened a stable connection for several minutes. The scientists who witnessed it were never the same afterward. Some went mad. Others became obsessed with recreating the experience, claiming they had glimpsed something beautiful beyond description. A few simply stopped speaking entirely, their minds apparent.
Yeah, Vas, I knew a bit about the Glocker, but I didn't know the details like this. This is the best thing I've heard on Die Glocker since I heard about it. Yeah, it's very good, isn't it?
Overwhelmed by what they had perceived. And Die Glock itself, the original device. The Soviets had it for years, but after the 1958 incident, they became frightened. They sealed the device in a facility somewhere in Siberia and classified all information about it at the highest levels. As far as I know, it's still there, waiting. Waiting for what? Amelia looked at me with those ancient, knowing eyes. For someone to be foolish enough to activate it again, or for something on the other side to find a way to activate it themselves. Before I left Poland, Amelia gave me something that she had kept hidden for 18 years. A metal box containing documents she had stolen from the facility before the final experiment. Technical specifications, research notes, diagrams of Die Glocke's internal structure, and something else. A final letter written by Dr. Victor Brandt on the night of January 28th, 1945. I've read that letter hundreds of times over the past 60 years. I've memorized every word, and I still don't fully understand what it means. My dearest Amelia, if you are reading this, then the experiment has succeeded, and I have passed through the gateway that I have spent my life trying to open. Do not mourn for me. What I have achieved is beyond anything our limited human understanding can comprehend. I have seen them, Amelia, the beings that exist beyond the veil of our reality. They are not gods, though primitive humans might have perceived them as such. They are not demons, though they are certainly capable of inspiring terror. They are simply the first, the oldest. The intelligences that arose in the earliest moments of creation and learned to transcend the limitations that bind lesser forms of consciousness. They have shown me things, the true nature of time, which is not a river flowing in one direction, but an ocean in which all moments exist simultaneously. The true nature of space, which is not empty void, but living tissue. The body of something so vast that galaxies are mere cells in its structure. And the true nature of consciousness, which does not end with...
Guys, have you seen that galaxy sand? It's sand, it's black sand, and it literally looks like the galaxy. It's got little lights, little light-coloured sand to represent the sun and all that. It's crazy. It's really pretty.
death, but transforms, becoming part of something greater, something eternal. I know you will think I have gone mad. Perhaps I have, by the standards of human sanity. But madness and enlightenment are often indistinguishable to those who have not experienced either. The experiment tonight will complete my transformation. I will no longer exist as Victor Brandt, a German scientist bound by flesh and time. I will become something new, something that will persist long after the Nazi Reich has crumbled to dust, long after human civilization has risen and fallen 1,000 times, long...
Satan's eternal promise, you too can be like God. Immortal-wise, I'm talking.
After the sun has grown cold and the earth has become a frozen tomb. Do not try to follow me, Amelia. The path I have chosen is not for everyone. But know that I will be watching, always watching, from a place where time has no meaning and distance is merely an illusion. And when humanity is finally ready, when your species has evolved beyond its current limitations, I will be waiting to welcome you to the realm that has become my home. With eternal love, Victor. This returned to Washington with Amelia's documents and Victor's letter. I wrote a report detailing everything I had discovered, and then I watched as that report was classified, sealed, and buried so deep that even I was forbidden from accessing it again. But I kept copies, hidden away, waiting for the right moment to reveal what I knew. That moment has finally arrived. I'm 87 years old. I have terminal cancer. In a few months, I'll be dead, and the secrets I've carried for 60 years will die with me unless I share them now. The truth is this: Die Glocke was real. The Nazi experiments into time manipulation and dimensional breaching were real. The beings that exist beyond our reality are real, and the governments of...
And guys, this is the 1940s. We're now in the 2026. The technology's got to be so advanced. They would have had this worked out already by now.
The world have known about all of this for decades, continuing research in secret while publicly denying that such things are possible. I don't know where Die Glocke is now. The Soviet Union collapsed, and who knows what happened to the facilities where they kept their most dangerous secrets. The American research programs were supposedly shut down in the 1970s after too many accidents made continuation impossible. But I've heard rumors, stories about private companies and billionaire investors funding new experiments, reports of strange phenomena near certain research facilities, disappearances that are never properly explained. Someone, somewhere, is still trying to open the door that Victor Brandt opened in 1945.
Hey, Diane,
Eventually,
docking
they will
your pay.
succeed. When they do, the beings on the other side will be waiting. The beings that feed on consciousness, that perceive time as a single eternal moment, that have been watching humanity's development with patient hunger since before we learned to make fire. Victor Brandt believed he had achieved transcendence. He believed he had evolved
Good to see you, Di.
beyond human limitation into something greater. But I've studied his letter for 60 years, and I've come to a different conclusion. Victor didn't transcend anything. He was consumed, absorbed, made part of something vast and alien and utterly indifferent to human values or human suffering. His consciousness didn't achieve immortality. It became food for entities that exist beyond our comprehension. And the same fate awaits anyone foolish enough to follow him. I'm sharing this story now because I believe people deserve to know the truth, not the sanitized version that governments allow to leak out as conspiracy theories.
Shawnee,
Not the
good to see you,
sensationalized version
Shawnee.
that entertainment media presents as fiction. The real truth, documented in journals and letters and classified files that I risked everything to preserve. Die Glocke was not just a Nazi experiment. It was an attempt to contact intelligences from beyond our dimension. It succeeded.
Guys, I got Mike from around the world next. I put him on second because the first hour, not many people get here for the stream. It starts to pick up now. So, yeah, that's what's getting played next.
And the door that was opened in 1945 has never been fully closed. If you're listening to this, be aware, be vigilant. Question the explanations you're given for phenomena that don't make sense. Pay attention to the stories that get buried, the witnesses who disappear, the research programs that are suddenly and inexplicably shut down. The truth is out there, as they say, but the truth is far more terrifying than most people can imagine. And somewhere, in a dimension that exists parallel to our own, something ancient and hungry is still watching, waiting for the next time someone is foolish enough to ring the bell. Among the documents Amelia gave me was one last entry from her journal, written years after the war, dated simply 1963. It was tucked into the back cover of the journal, as if she had added it recently, perhaps knowing that someone would eventually come looking for answers. To whoever finds this, I have kept silent for almost 20 years, but silence has its own weight, its own price. The things I witnessed in that facility have never left me. They live in my dreams, in the corners of my vision, in the moments between heartbeats, when time seems to stretch into something larger than itself. I used to believe that Victor was wrong, that what he called transcendence was really just destruction, the dissolution of consciousness into something vast and hungry and indifferent. But lately, I'm not so sure. Sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn, I see things. Glimpses of other times, other places, other versions of reality. I see Victor standing in fields of light that have no source, smiling at me with eyes that hold the knowledge of centuries. I see the beings that took him, and they don't seem monstrous anymore. They seem patient, understanding, like parents watching a child struggle with a concept that will eventually become clear. I'm beginning to wonder if Victor was right all along, if what we called consumption was really just transformation, if the door he opened leads not to oblivion, but to a form of existence so different from our own that we lack the conceptual framework to understand it. I'm tired.
Yeah, Shawnee, that's real. They've got a few people on the run for fraud.
Tired of hiding, tired of being afraid, tired of existing in this strange half-state between dimensions, aging slowly while the world changes around me. Perhaps it's time to stop running. Perhaps it's time to find out what really lies on the other side of that door. If you're reading this and I'm no longer here,
Wow, 325,000 without licenses, and they think they've got licenses. Wow, that's a bad situation.
don't look for me. Don't try to follow. Just remember what I've told you and make your own choice about what it means. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. But maybe that's not always a bad thing. E.W. When I returned to Poland in 1965 to check on Amelia, the house at the edge of the village was empty. The villagers said she had walked into the mountains one night and never returned. Search parties found no trace of her, but one of the searchers told me something that has haunted me ever since. He said that on the night Amelia disappeared, the sky above the Owl Mountains was filled with strange lights, colors that didn't have names, patterns that seemed to form symbols just for a moment before dissolving into ordinary starlight. And in the distance, barely audible over the wind, he heard what sounded like a bell ringing, a bell that rang once, twice, 3 times,
The clocker bell.
and then silence.
That was interesting, guys. Right, where is he?
Maybe we start with Venezuela. I understand that there's 5 U.S. citizens that have been detained, being charged with drug trafficking.
Right.
So
Here's a question.
Oh, Mike's
Why
already
would any
there.
American?
there and such good kids, and in the heartland of America. Yeah, it's a good place. Indiana's a good place to grow up. Good Bible believing red state, no doubt about that. So tonight we are looking though at deception. It is global, but truth still shines. The world is shaking, but God is not confused. Let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me, Jesus said. So discernment is the survival skill of the last days. Stay awake, stay prayed up, stay grounded in truth, because deception.
How come there's more hair on his painting behind him of him than there is in real life? Look how long his hair is there.
May be a protocol for the world, but truth is the protocol for the kingdom of God. Can you say amen? And truth will always win. Truth will always win. So tonight, Mike from the World's going to join us here any minute. We're going to be asking him about deception protocol. By the way, guys, there has been there was a very powerful solar flare. It was an N7 class solar flare on the sun, and we're going to feel the pressure of that CME tomorrow and Saturday on July 2nd, January 2nd, and 3rd. We're going to feel that. Earthquakes are also happening, and there's a blizzard going on right now. Snow, heavy snow up there in Lake Erie area, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Really, Michigan has 2 foot of snow. Really, that whole Great Lakes area, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, Ohio, and on into Pennsylvania and into New York State. There is incredible amount of snow and blizzard whiteout conditions and very bitter cold going on. And so pray about that. As the Bible says, also earthquakes. We know there's been several earthquakes that have been hitting around the world. And of course, that's not going to stop. Alaska's had a ton of them. A 5.3, 4.8, but then just a ton of earthquakes right now going on in Alaska. It's shaking like crazy in Alaska. And I'm talking a ton of earthquakes, about 50 earthquakes over 3.5 and higher. So there's a whole lot of shaking going on.
It's crazy.
And want to say God bless all. If you want to get our coffee cup, they are available at my website. Get the new mug. It is awesome. There it is with the cross and the cup. And of course, on the other side, Are You Serious Bullet?
How did Jesus know God was his father? He knows God. He is God. How it works, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word is Jesus Christ. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is Jesus Christ.
Lord,
That's John 1:1.
Jesus Saves Way. This is a great conversation piece. You can talk to people while you're having coffee about Jesus. And Are You Serious Boulevard? You can tell them about the podcast and everything going on. And really want you to enjoy that. We're waiting now any moment for Mike from around the world to be calling us any moment now. Good and Happy New Year to everybody here. We're so glad you're with us tonight. And matter of fact, joining us right now, speaking out loud, joining us somewhere from around the world, it's Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Pastor Paul, doing well. How are you?
Doing great, Mike. I'm going to turn you down just a hair. I'm on a different system. I'm at my son's house out here in the forest in Washington State, Mike. I mean, I'm looking for Sasquatch where I'm at. I'm north of Seattle. You had to take a ferry, on the Puget Sound up here close to Canada. I'm in the forest. I mean, you got a pipe day.
Looking for Esau's people, huh?
I am. I mean, I really am. Okay, Mike, hang on. I might have turned this the wrong way. Give me 1 second.
Uh-oh.
Paul Jr. Okay, Mike. Let me ask the audience. Do you guys hear Mike okay? Is he
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good to go.
I think we're good to go, Mike. Thank you.
All right.
How you doing tonight? Happy New Year, Mike. Happy New Year.
And to you too. Happy New Year. What will this year bring? That's a question, huh?
That's a question. I started this show tonight with the title of Deception Protocol.
That's a good title.
Can we talk about that? I mean, it's going on everywhere, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's almost like they pull the deep programming of everybody's life out to the forefront, and now they're utilizing every tool in the arsenal to accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Wow. Well, Mike, let's start with this protocol of deception. Maybe we start with Venezuela. I understand that there's 5 U.S. citizens that have been detained, being charged with drug trafficking.
Right. Here's the question. Why would any American be near that place? Why?
That's a great question. No way in
Given
this
the
world.
fact that things are happening right now, the average person, they should know it's going to be, retribution. They're going to have their mind set on revenge, and they won't stop. They won't stop.
No, it's not a smart thing to travel to a place where the mess that's in, and the deception that's going on, and the violence, and this regime is a dangerous. Maduro's a dangerous regime. Why would people go? But people seem like are oblivious to what goes on around them. Am I right?
Yeah, you know what? Some people are so stubborn. They can see danger, and they'll say, well, I'm going anyway. That gets people, in bad positions. And in Venezuela, that entire place is being uncovered. That's the effort here, is to what?
Bobo, when you're getting told by an angel you're giving birth to the Son of Mankind, you tend not to doubt anything then.
Uncover that place.
Did she have any say in the pregnancy? No, but you could bet bottom dollar she was overjoyed when she realised.
They can uncover it. They can have a regime change, because that will be one of the ultimate goals. But it's a very dangerous place, extremely dangerous place.
Do you think at this point now that the United States, of course, Trump has been blowing up the drug boats, and now he's hit this the dock, he's hit this facility where drugs were being staged. He's admitted the CIA was the one that actually did it on behalf of the United States, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more going on there. Where do you see
The CIA, it's all about war on your competition.
this thing escalating to?
There'll be more until he, turns over that regime. He wants to get that regime out of power, period, right? And everything is connected to. If you can do that, if you take notice right now, America has threats, right? Some pretty serious threats. Nobody has, what's been happening for a long time prior to Trump has been appeasement, right? So it's almost like a continuation, certain deals, all these different political things happening in the background, but it wasn't working. The situation was becoming worse. And so Trump simply identified, we have American citizens who are paying the price for these deals, and he's going to end it. So that's also a place, a staging place for America's military enemies, right?
Yeah, you're right.
That you can't leave Venezuela unchecked. That's that would be a bad mistake. So after Venezuela, there are going to be a few other places that will also be on the charts. Same thing is going to happen to them. Any place these military enemies of America utilize and train at, they're going to be turned over, just like Venezuela.
Wow. So
it's not over. This is one of a few.
So where Russia and China, or let's say Iran even, sets up shop, those locations, those countries and those locations are in danger of retribution by the United States. We're not going to let the enemy set up too close to us. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. That's right. Because if the technology has advanced, the enemy has long-range capabilities to hit us. And we know that. There have been, for example, everybody else, a lot of people swept this under the rug. But when there were incidences with the microwave tampering of people, I would say.
Right.
But that was a very serious ordeal.
Yep.
That is actual technology, and it was employed. And of course, they to a degree told the public, this is real. It's also ongoing, right?
Yep.
So think of and of course they can't do this.
This is the quickest way to go from AI beginner to AI fluent in 2026. Watch this.
So this is how I became the most dangerous person in the room. One habit changed everything. I replaced social media with micro-learning. Now, instead of wasting time on social media, I spend 15 minutes a day actually learning how to use AI for writing, planning, brainstorming, the real work. That's it, just one skill a day. This is the 28-day AI challenge built for beginners over 40. Starts tomorrow. Tap the screen to join us and try the one habit that really makes you unstoppable.
This is officially the most sought-after smartwatch on the market today. Powered by proprietary smart chip. This device accurately measures blood sugar, blood oxygen, and body temperature. It also monitors heart rate, blood pressure, sleep quality, and 8 other core health metrics 24/7 with up to 90% accuracy. It completes a full body health check in just 60 seconds. A single charge delivers up to 30 days of battery life. The watch supports independent calling and internet
when they're too far away. But think of a situation where the entire southern region of the U.S. would come under some sort of random assault from microwave weapons. That would be devastating, right? It'd be devastating. So we can't have that. When you have people set up in ports like that in the USA, would be the target of those that type of electronic harassment. That's a no-go.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, we had the Cuba thing. It's called the Savannah syndrome.
That's what they medically named it. Yeah, that's absolutely real, right? That same technology is mounted in aircraft. is mounted in ground stations. They already identified one of the points of origin. Venezuela is not innocent concerning that technology. Right?
Wow. No,
So,
Buzby, come on, Buzz.
they can't
Buzz,
be close to
come
the
on.
U.S. They cannot sway because Mexico is like a sidewalk going up into the USA. So we have to have a handle on any of those places that could be a massive influence on troop gatherings that could, do us some harm.
Well, Mike, talking about deception protocol, we've got to talk about China-Taiwan situation. I mean, how many times is this? We're going to get this every year. We're going to get this China come and set up shop and circle Taiwan and shoot live ammunition. And then you do this year after year after year after year. Aren't you desensitizing not only, you're desensitizing the world that this is inevitable. They're going to take them.
Good observation. They sure are, because people right now, that those training operations, they take place. A few weeks later, nobody's talking about them.
Yeah.
Nobody cares, right?
Right.
But worse is Taiwan. They used to be highly intimidated. It'd be on, the front page.
Right.
People would get involved. Now people are saying, well, that always happens, and that's what they wait for.
Yep. And when
that's how you program people. You like you said, you essentially desensitize people to any type of emerging plans. They get used to something. Yep. They will never be there to defend them when they need to be defended.
Yeah, in the United States, let's just look at it this way. If the Taiwanese people are becoming desensitized to it, saying, okay, it's the Chinese doing that again, they're never going to do it. And then also, by the way, the Japanese and the Americans and others that would be certainly their allies, they would also become desensitized. We're not moving ships in that direction. We're not, we always keep one boat or, we keep a little bit of presence in that area. I understand that. But Mike, we're not taking it as serious. If China decided that this was it and they were going to take Taiwan, can they take it?
Yeah, because we're not in position.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We used to have heavy guard in that part of the Pacific, but now we don't. And if they decide to move, it's going to take some time to respond correctly, right? Yep. Same thing is happening with Russia.
Okay.
And Russia is the biggest mistake anybody could ever make. Russia is. Russia's been moving around their nuclear launchers, correct?
Yep.
Now, people have heard that before. They've heard the story that Russia is moving launchers to Belarus. Or near Belarus. They've heard this over and over again, right? But nobody is telling them about the decon centers that went up in the heart of Russia, right? Nuclear decon centers. Nobody has told them the amount of resources that's been applied to about kills to their citizens and the little information pamphlets about deconning from any type of nuclear attack and this, that, and the other. So unlike any other time, there's been preparations for the people of Russia, just in case they
Diane, all the people who gotten behind the Jews here after those 15 Jews were slaughtered by that government and his father. Yeah, so yeah.
Some sort of nuclear mishap.
So you're saying, are you saying in Belarus they are training the people where to go to deep?
Yeah. So with our Muslims, with what they've done with that Jewish assassination, they're trying to organise a royal commission. A royal commission's what would that be like in America? I don't know, but they got the power to see everything. And the reason the government doesn't want a royal commission is because they're the reason why this anti-Semitism attack went on at Bondi. They G'd the Muslims up for 2 years to do that.
And
now they're going to take them to court.
Centers are being set up in Belarus.
Well, that's in the heart of. They're setting up missile launchers.
Yeah.
In Belarus.
Yeah.
Entire batteries around there, right?
Yeah.
Unlike any other time in Moscow and surrounding places. They're training the citizens on how to decon from any type of nuclear attack.
Yep.
So, but that's a mistake for the world to ignore that, right? Putin is a case in point about desensitizing. The world is not taking Putin seriously.
No.
Yeah.
Yet he's steadily making moves. He's been eroding the Ukraine.
Yeah.
He'll hit the Ukraine and back off a little bit. Hit the Ukraine and back off a little bit. Let them gain ground. Then hit the Ukraine and back off a little bit. And believe me, he's taking chunks out of their morale. He's taking chunks out of the Ukraine. They're losing big time. And the world is spinning up all this.
There's goon squads in the Ukraine that are taking men off the street and making them fight in the Ukrainian army. That's happening in Ukraine now.
Money defending Ukraine. How much money has Putin absorbed?
A lot.
By Ukraine. Just think about that. So he's exhausting resources from other nations, military resources, to the point where the U.S. cannot share armaments. But we can't share ammunition with them. They're drying Europe out. And believe me, once it hits a certain point, Putin will not hesitate to fully begin to assault or expand.
Do you think
his ideologies?
Now he controls Belarus, and he pretty well can take Moldova anytime he wants. So and that means he completely, and he could take Odessa if he wanted to, and then he has complete control of the waterways that go into Ukraine. Do you think as he's draining NATO's and each individual nation's military capability, who's next? Is it Poland? Is it Romania? Is it Lithuania?
They're going to be there for expansion purposes, right?
Yeah.
His goal is to eliminate the NATO posturing, right?
Yes.
Any possibility of NATO posturing, because if he took the Ukraine and NATO is still NATO, he still has a big threat with any of the friendly nations in that province, right?
Hey, Andrew, you good to see you, mate.
Believe me, he's going to hurt them bad. Is one of his major goals is he will end up hitting Europe.
I believe that. He's not leaving. You said it in 2014. You said, trust me, Putin will never leave Ukraine until he takes